So, today I'm here to talk about my capstone, which was greatly healing the sexual brokenness and finding ways to serve in my context and my season, my place in life right now. So, here's a little outline of the path that I'll take you guys on today, hopefully. So we'll start by talking about the background and the beginning stages. So what was the inspiration behind the project and what led up to it? And then I'll get into what I did, kind of some of the process, some of the deliverables, was, a picture of what it was, and a couple points from what I learned from this, and looking forward to what is next. So first, we will start with background and beginning stages. So right before I came to Sattler in the fall of 2020, Sattler called a virtual conference on sexual addictions titled A Conference About Sexual Addictions. And I tuned into that and listened to that. And I think that was probably there were several factors probably in my life, but that was one of the factors that started sparking interest for me and the topic, starting to see how big of a problem this was, even in the church. And so that fall was also, I guess, was a buzz about these topics around that time at Sattler. And that fall, some of the students here started what they called what would eventually call it Freedom Group, using the Conquer series, which some of you may be familiar with. And so I jumped up to be involved with that, and I would end up being involved with every rendition of Freedom Groups after that in my time at Sattler. Further interest was, for me, developed whenever I took a few counseling classes in my sophomore year. I explored some of these topics a little bit more and just generally garnered more interest in helping people and in understanding problems and growing past them into more full and cultural places. So this is a very, very big outline overview. But then the start of my capstone was in June of 2023, last year. So I started out, I had a really nice plan for what I was going to do. I was going to do, I was doing 9 credits of research and writing papers and exploring the topic, and 3 credits on a conference on sexuality. And I had the questions ironed out what I was going to do, 4 stages split up, all the stuff ready to go. And you can see the questions that I had here. I was first going to go from first defining and understanding what is fullness and sexual health for a Christian, for a believer. And then I was going to answer the question of what does it take to get to that point, and then identifying what are barriers that keep people from getting to that point. And then my last section is going to be very factual about how did Sattler College, in particular, in their context, address those inhibitors for those healthy steps. However, and then then some other things with it. I started research. I had a database where I started just collecting a bunch of stuff, researching a bunch of stuff, and here's an example of one of the pages and where they're all connected, so I keep track of all these different things. And I started researching qualitative analysis and try to get understandings. I wanted to do some interviewing of students at Sattler to get the best possible results for the specific context of Sattler, what to do there. So this was going on in summer. But then another opportunity presented itself in the fall as I was in the middle of doing this. And that was the possibility of doing some work for an existing coaching organization for men with sexual addictions at this point, by the name of Hope Fraternity Guide. And the founder of that was Arthur Nisley, and he was looking to grow and expand the organization, but he's been very overwhelmed with just a lot of the high demand for work. He does this virtually. And so this presented a fork in the road of like, do I keep this very nice and neat project that I have ironed out and like do it? And it would like look really good on paper, if I wanted to do grad school afterwards, it would really help my chances of getting into different schools or not. And ultimately, I decided to take the opportunity. So my capstone project went from booking something like this to transitioning to like 3 different parts. 6 credits being interning, working and helping at a Guide, and 3 credits still doing a conference related to sexuality, and 3 credits still working with Sattler, but much, much less original research and narrowed down to just recommendations. So my overarching objective then was to use the skills and knowledge I gained through my Sattler experience, expanding from my major to a minor, discipleship experience, work study, internships, extracurriculars, to minister to others who are either 1, seeking sexual wholeness, or 2, helping facilitate it for others. So now we'll get into, that's the background stage of what led me there. So now we're in the fall of last year, and this is a little bit of what I did. I'll start with, I'll list all 3, Sattler discipleship up at first, and the conference, and then the internship work. Some of the work I did was, some of the capstone work I did was related to all of these. So for instance, I read a lot of books just on sexuality and Christian discipleship, generally trying to understand the different components that are needed to, for one, to grow into more wholeness and to disciple others who are looking to grow. And so some of these books apply towards the conference, some of them apply more to the Sattler discipleship recommendations that I end up giving in the end, and some to my internship. So I'll start with Sattler discipleship, and then I'll get sexuality conference and the internship in the next 3 slides. So first, in Sattler discipleship, so this was the main part of my original capstone project that was narrowed down to just 3 credits. So what I ended up doing was conducting 3 different student surveys. One of those for the freshmen who participated in the D-Lab lecture on sexuality this past fall, and 2 of those on past Freedom Group participants. So I helped and I led the Freedom Groups this year using some of the things that I found and discovered over the years and that are helpful for the context here. And then I developed and presented a D-Lab sexuality lecture for the Sattler, and then particularly with the D-Lab and Freedom Groups, I provided recommendations for how Sattler should and could structure those things, and what to include was not good going forward. And then for sexuality conference, this was a long process. There was a lot of research of speakers, and there was a lot of conversations about, okay, how should we do this and what themes are best? So with sexuality, the 2 main areas I've been interested in are sexual addictions, but also same-sex attraction and similar LGBT-esque issues. And I had some interest in potentially doing a conference on the latter, but I had a lot of conversation with people on what would be best and what would be most helpful for participants and for Sattler as a whole. And ultimately we decided to go to more of a root cause type, a root issue type of conference, and going with cultivating caring communities. And we looped this in with Therefore Go, Sattler's annual conference. And so I did the majority of the work in organizing, marketing, and making sure that went smoothly. And many people helps along the way. But this was a really enjoyable and fun time where I feel like I discovered some gifts along the way, and when people were blessed with better sessions and conversations. Also, the speakers we had was Gregory Coles, Arthur Nicey, the one who I was doing my internship for, and Marion New. And their topics are listed there. Talked on a few sexuality adjacent things. So after it was done, then I wrote practical and theological reflections on the event. So that included just like reflecting on some of the process for getting the speakers and navigating some of the challenges that come with holding a conference on more taboo topics that are not as easy and to just talk about in a public setting. and theological reflections on some of the things that came out of the talks. And so one of those was not a main part of the talk, but one thing that was mentioned in one of the talks was how Christians should think about communities, especially towards those with same-sex attraction. And that sparked a lot of interest in the student body about how we should think about those things and what views we should hold as Christians. And so I did a write-up on that as well. So then with that internship with Brokenness Guide, which was my the bulk or half of my capstone project, there is a lot that I did. So I tried to just narrow it down to a few of the things. One of the small things that I'm still working on and will be kind of continued afterwards is networking with Christian counselors. So with such a high demand, we have been seeking to network as much as possible with other organizations to, if somebody has an urgent need but can't wait as long as what's on the waiting list, that we can maybe connect them with someone else. One of the main things I did was help try to streamline organizational processes. So there's a lot of redundant things that I did. So my position was under the title of administrative assistant. So I did a lot of emails, communication with clients, and the like. So part of that was identifying the things that happen over and over again and making like message templates and task templates to do those things over and over very, very easily, very, very quickly. So you can spend time on other things that are also important. And also a little bit of like research and synthesis that didn't take up a huge block, but was there as part. You can see that here on the left of an example, that one of a couple of those, where it's like reviewing content that might be helpful to add to the curriculum that's already existing. And so much more. There's stuff like helping redo the website and using stuff that I gained from my business minor and from my work studies at Sattler to do that pretty easily. See that here. And other expansion tasks, I'm trying to help organize some future tasks or future projects for expanding to even further. So from this end, I would also talk about what I learned. And there's a lot of things that I learned from this. So I was really trying to think about the kinds of things that I could talk about and include in this presentation. And ultimately, I just came up with two things. That's on the wrong slide. Right here is, I learned that information brings limited change, and that we need experience ultimately to experience deeper change. So this is, I think, one of my main takeaways from reflecting on all the things that I learned cumulatively about growth and counseling in terms of what's needed. One of the things that I've seen is that information can be super, super, super helpful for some people, especially people whose the problems aren't super deep. Maybe the problems have been existing for less time. And sometimes for those people, I've seen information be something that just like a switch, just like gives them what they need to take the next step in healing and growth. For other people, though, their problems are much more deeply rooted, and the information does a little bit to help bring them further along, but there also needs to be experience. I think it's experience with others, hearing their stories, experience with God and time of solitude, and hearing from Him, knowing and understanding their identity in Him, and so much more. I think going behind what is needed for people to grow and experience true and lasting change. And the other thing, related more to myself and my own trajectory in life, is that I learned through this project that we all have different gifts, but we also have different stages of the life. So what I mean by that is, I've been interested in counseling for a while, but one of the tensions that I've held is that I believe that counseling especially requires a lot of wisdom, and it's something that I don't think can come very quickly just by reading a bunch of books, that comes over the course of life. So I have this tension for myself of, how do I relate to this? As like, I want to be involved with helping people and their stories and this and that, but I also feel like I feel God like tugging me to slow down and embrace my place and space in life. And this project helped me realize that we can still contribute to bigger things using gifts that may not be as readily apparent as gifts that can help people grow in like a counseling context. For me, that was learning and using organizational, administrative skills, as well as research and writing and other such things, and using them in places to serve, so that ultimately people can grow into to more healing and wellness in their lives. And so then finally, talk about what's next. And this is where my slide got mixed up, so I'm going to go back a couple. So what's next is that I'm going to continue working at Hope Training Guide indefinitely. Right now, it's still pretty limited role, but as the organization expands, there's the potential to fill a number of different roles. So I'm really excited about that and excited about what's happening there. Excited to serve and use my gifts to help it grow right now. I'm planning on participating in mentor training in September. What mentor training is one of the programs that is offered at Brokenness Guiding for people who are wanting to help others. It's a year-long program that trains people to basically do what Arthur has been doing in his organization for the last several years, giving him the knowledge that he's gained over that period of time. I plan to use further research. I showed you a little bit of the database that I had, and while I didn't end up doing that big research project that I was anticipating initially, I still have that database and I'm still adding to it, and I'm still carrying on further research on my own about these things. And lastly, I've considered graduate school. I'm not doing that this fall, but I'm considering it for the following year or maybe later. It's one of those things where ultimately I want to allow God to guide me, and whenever it's time, if ever, to do certain big steps like that. And so I want to give also a thanks to the people that helped make this possible. There are several other people that I won't name, roommates, journey group, people that friends and family that brought this a long way, but especially Professor Jones is my main capstone advisor, helping me giving guidance, and him coming on even as a new professor at the beginning of this year. Dr. Schumann in the earlier stages of the project, and even periodically throughout, giving input. Dr. Jeff Todd, a friend and mentor of mine, who probably gave the most input. We're just like, what's happened? Something like, hey, what do you think about this? And he would give me feedback very quickly. And also Christy, who was also on my advice big word. I want to give thanks to all of those people for their help. Here's a photo sources that I use with this presentation. And that's all I have.